What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. We've got a really cool, awesome, fun guest joining us from Austin, Texas. Please welcome Epiphany Jordan. She is the author of Somebody Hold Me, The Single Person's Guide to Nurturing Human Touch. I love it, Epiphany. Can you please introduce yourself? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Sure. My name's Epiphany Jordan. I live in Austin, Texas, as Deanna just told you, and I am on a mission to redesign human touch. I feel like our current cultural paradigm of adults only touching each other when they're in a sexual or romantic relationship isn't working for most of us. Almost 50% of Americans are single, and it actually doesn't work for a lot of people in romantic relationships as well. And I think that as we come out of COVID, this time where we haven't really been able to touch other people for a year, it's a really good thing to be talking about and thinking about, because even though COVID shut it all down, it wasn't doing really well for a lot of people even before that. And I think it's something where we can think about making a shift individually and on a collective level.
I love it. I mean, I'm all about human touch. I'm not shy at all. I'm very body positive. I mean, I post, stuff. I mean, I take some really great photo shoots with people. And I think that, when it comes to human touch, like it's necessary, you know,
It
and,
is.
it really boils down to, where a person, if people have like a healthy relationship with human touch, or if is it unhealthy? Is it toxic? Is it, are they addicted? Because
Right.
that rolls into like there's many different things where sorry, the dogs. Everybody knows I think the dogs like to make appearance. So
Aw,
yeah,
I love it. I love
yeah.
it.
This is real life here, girl. This is for real. But I want you like I feel like this is a very original topic, and people don't talk about it enough. So
Yeah.
what made you like really start going into like the human touch and snuggling and all that stuff?
Okay, so back in 2008, 2009, I was studying sacred sexuality with a woman out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I went to a festival with her, and one of her offerings that she had that her students were participating in was called a Karuna Session, and it was a ritual of non-sexual touch. And I was really, really struck by the experiences that the people who were coming in were having. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And about 4 or 5 years later, I started playing around with it with some friends, and everybody was like, "This is amazing. You should turn it into a business." And so we started offering it as a service. And then um, about in 2017, I ended a long-term relationship. I had been with somebody for 5 years, and it was a very touch-centric relationship. And I knew from what our clients had been telling us and what I had been studying and so forth, was that, if I wasn't dating somebody, then that was it. I wouldn't, have an outlet for tender touch, or, if I needed comfort, if I was grieving, if I needed support, relaxation, all these wonderful
Yeah.
things that touch can do for us. And so I ended up writing the book. And, the more I've gotten into it, it's such an important part of our biology. I'd like to see us recast it as a wellness practice, because it has all these amazing physical, physiological, mental health benefits. And yeah, I think it's just something that it touches, no pun intended, so many different areas of our lives. And it's very complicated, and yet it's so human. And it's so necessary for our survival, I think.
Yeah.
So I've just, there's so many. I mean, we could be having a conversation about this for 6 hours and
Yeah.
probably not touch everything. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a hugger, and when we talked the first time when we had our introduction call, we talked a little bit about that, and there's a sexual aspect, right? But
Hmm.
there's also just that touching aspect. Like, I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
COVID has changed a lot of that because people are so freaked out. And
Yeah.
I find myself, whereas before I would just hug someone. Now you got
Yeah.
to ask, like, can I hug you? Like, is it okay? even
Yeah.
like grabbing someone's hand and just like
Mhm.
holding their hand, and like if you're having a good conversation, just looking at them,
Yeah.
just like just that touch and connecting, because I
Mhm.
think that when you are like experimenting when it's not a sexual piece, right? And it's
Right.
just like the touching part, um, that you create more of a connection with someone and you exchange that energy, which is where we are all made up of energy, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
scientifically proven now. There's been studies and all that stuff.
Right.
So you exchange that energy, that love, and that like, and it's very powerful. It's very healing, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of people use touch for sexual gratification, like you said, and I love sex, absolutely, but I
Me
do just love,
too. Me too.
but I do just love to lay there and hold my boyfriend and just watch
Yeah.
TV and hold him and just like snuggle, and
Uh-huh.
like, it's just so fulfilling, and it makes my heart beat really fast, and it's just very loving.
Should be making your heartbeat slow down. Slow down your I mean,
Well, I'm in love, so my heart's beating fast. So
Aw, that's so sweet. I love it. I love it. That's
okay,
awesome.
okay,
So
thinkers.
they want to get in on the action. I mean, you can tell. I mean, like I have a 14-year-old cat and I cannot get her out of my lap like all day long every day. She
Really.
just wants to sit in my lap, and
Aw.
it's like I mean, that's the thing, it's like we talk all the time about how important touches for babies,
Yeah.
and infants. And I mean, getting good touch and good connection with your parents in the first couple of years of life will set you up for, emotional, good emotional space for the rest of your life. But, when we get to be adults, we don't have those sorts of opportunities anymore. And, and we can't, I don't want to say that touch isn't a part of sex because it is. It's a very important part of sex, but we're leaving a lot else out. I mean, like I don't know if you've ever known a couple or been in a relationship where like one member of the couple wants more sex than the other one, and so like every hug it's like nope, don't touch me because I know that when you touch me, you're going to want to have sex, and I don't want that. So it's like then people, end up with no touch at all. And, I don't,
That's a really sad thought. Like that
it
kind of.
is, but it happens. It happens a lot. I mean, it's like if you I mean, if you read any of the literature, like stuff that women who do sex work have written, there's so many women who are like, yeah, I have guys who come in, they don't even want to have sex. They just want to lay on the bed and have me hold them and talk to them, So it's like, we're really missing out on a lot. And that's even just for people who already have a relationship, that doesn't, if you're single and you're lucky and you have good friends, you maybe get a hug, hello, or goodbye when you see them. But that's not very much touch.
Yeah.
It's
Cheers to the new year's and to making resolutions you actually keep. Have you added self-care to your routine? I know I have very much into self-care. My man is, yes, he is definitely keeping it tight. Our sponsors at Manscaped have the perfect tools to help keep you and your significant other clean and tidy this year. Manscaped tools for his jewels are so good, you'll want them for yourself. The Lawnmower 4.0 is all you'll need for his balls and your bikini line. You know what's up, ladies. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million people worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code labelfree20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Happy New Year's, you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate all your support. Go over to manscaped.com, use the code labelfree20 for 20% off and free shipping. And my little puppy here, she's all wrapped up in the blanket. She's gonna knock this thing off.
aw.
So okay, you know what? After what you were just saying about people in relationships and they're lacking that touch, I really feel like there's a lack of intimacy then. If they're in relationships and they're not getting that warmth and that nurturing that they should, when you're connecting and you're having the correct intimacy with your partner.
Well, it's interesting because Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be a lack of communication, but I mean, it's like we don't even have the language to talk about this thing, right?
Right.
It's like people don't really think about it this way. I actually a while back I did actually it was right before COVID started. Some sex therapist friends of mine have like a couples group therapy where there's like 4 or 5 couples who all go once a month and they talk about a different topic and you know, I took them through a bunch of different stuff about this topic, and then we took them through an exercise of non-sexual touch, and they were just like, my friend tells me that a year later they're still talking about it,
Yeah.
because it's like people don't, because like I said, we've got touch stuffed into that same box as sex, and it's just not great for most of us.
Yeah, no, that's unhealthy. That's an unhealthy. And I'll be honest, like I probably was in that box too. But I was married. My late husband and I, we were really all about sex. We were swingers. We kind of had an open relationship.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I know we had a lot of fun. But then after we got married and we started working so much, we really started losing that sexual connection. We didn't have as
Yeah.
we were lucky if we had sex once a month. And then he got sick, and then there was nothing. There was really no touch. There was
Yeah.
none of that. And I swore to myself. And then he didn't make it. He was just way too sick.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
swore to myself after losing him that I'm like that. I'm never gonna have a relationship like that again because I that because you as a human being you need that physical connection.
Yeah.
We need it because I feel like I was so empty inside.
Yeah.
And at the end, I made some bad choices that kind of did not shed a great light on me. I mean, I forgive myself. I was a great wife. I was a great partner. All that stuff, but I did make a bad choice. I had an affair at the end, and
Oh, yeah,
and
I mean, that's a hard place to be in, but I mean, would you have maybe not had an affair if you had like a female friend or something that you could have gone to snuggle with who would have like given you support? And I mean, I know I watched my parents go through this. My father's been dead for about 13 years, but he had dementia at the end, and so it was like all of a sudden my mother, instead of having this life partner that she shared all these responsibilities with, she became everything. And it's so exhausting to be a caregiver all of the time. And, this is something, my father had dementia, and so one of the discount groups that I had for Karuna Sessions was people who were taking care of somebody who had Alzheimer's or dementia, because it's like, to be able to go and like have somebody else take care of you, and to not necessarily break that bond of fidelity by having an affair, just to have somebody like hold you and kind of give you a refresh. I call it like getting your nurturing bank account refilled.
mm,
That maybe if you had had that option, you wouldn't have wanted to have an affair.
you know what? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I can't go back in the past. I mean, the person I had an affair with, he was younger than I was. He was a very attractive man,
Yeah.
very attractive. So I mean, I look at it like it just was part of my journey, and
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that. And
Hmm.
I didn't lie when my husband asked me. I told him the truth. I didn't hide it.
Yeah.
And I
Was
told him.
he was he understanding of it? I mean,
No, he was losing it at the end.
oh,
And and I told him, I said, we're
sorry.
like, I'm only human. I'm only
Yeah.
human. I'm like, we can work this out, and I'm just like, you don't like you're too sick. Like you're just too sick. Like let's talk about it. And he couldn't talk about it, and it was
Mm,
it was devastating, and he was not in his right mind because he just wasn't there. I mean, I had gone 8 months with like nothing. So
yeah, it's hard.
yeah, and I've forgiven myself. I know people probably some of the people from back at that time period are look at me a certain way, and that's okay. I,
Yeah.
I was a great wife. I was very committed. I never did anything wrong, and I'm only human, and
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean,
so
we
empty.
can yeah, I mean, we can sit here and talk all day about how horrible it is for people to cheat, but in the end it's like there's a lot of people out there cheating, so it's like, and and it's always gray. And, I feel like a situation like what you were in where your partner's sick, that, it's a little bit different, I
Oh,
think.
I don't wish that on anyone. I don't wish that
Yeah,
on
I
anyone.
know it's really, it's hard. We just don't have good support systems and medical care in this country. And, when it falls just to the one person, I mean, my mother kept my father at home the entire time he was sick. And, she had hired people to come in and help during the day while she was at work. But I mean, man, she was so exhausted. I remember her getting like one night off to go like spend the night away with some of her friends. And, I mean, like, even just getting that was like
Yeah.
pulling teeth. It was really rough. And I think my brother at the time stayed with my dad and took care of him, and it really shook him up. He really had a really hard time, because it's just it's intense, and it's like more and more of us are being called on to do that. So
And it changes the dynamics for a spouse. It changes the dynamics of your
yeah.
relationship. You no longer view them as a spouse. And I
Yeah,
think
they're
that's the hardest part.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like all of a sudden your partner's not your partner anymore. They're like a child. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Let,
I
let, let's divert. That was a pretty intense conversation, but it really goes hand in hand with what you're all about, what your book's all about. So
right.
let's talk a little bit more about your book. So
Sure.
from 2013 to 2020, you got up close and personal with your subject matter and Karuna Sessions.
Right.
You were a journalist, an event planner, professional tarot reader. Wow, you've done a lot of stuff. You're
I
definitely
have.
living label free. And so now you're teaching. Are you teaching this idea of um, touch?
I mean, I'm the book is actually it's kind of a workshop in the book. And the radical idea that's presented in the book is that it teaches you how to share touch with your friends. And the way that you would do that is by doing it in kind of a group setting in a very structured fashion, so that you take touch from being a sexual activity to being a social activity. Because, pretty much anytime you've got one-on-one people touching each other, it's really easy to
So,
think about that as, as something sexual. I mean, you know different, because you've been a swinger and had an open marriage. And I mean, I did a lot of that kind of stuff as well. So, but most people don't have experiences with group sex. So, if you're with like four of your friends, it's like a bunch of little kids playing. And so it's like I've basically the book is like there's like a workshop in the book so that you can do this with your friends. You don't need me to teach you. You can just grab the book, and everybody could read in your group could read the book. And you go through a series of exercises. And then the idea is when you come out at the end of it, you have a lot of different ideas about, what non-sexual touch looks like, because most of us just even, think of it as like a hug or holding hands or something.
yeah,
And then, you have a little bit of a sense of like what type of touch you like. Like you might like having your arms scratched, for instance. But if somebody's going like this really lightly, they may be like, oh, that tickles.
yeah,
So you get to play around with it. And then the most important thing is that by the time you get done, you and this group of friends have a common frame of reference around what touch means. So it's easy to go, hey, why don't you guys come over tonight? We'll cuddle up on the couch and watch a movie. And everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's
yeah.
what we're doing. It's they don't think that something else is going on there. So
What
I'm
are the
I'm
benefits? What are the benefits when people say, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to get a group of people and they want to follow the structure in your book? What are the benefits for them when they decide to do something like that?
well, there's oh my God, there's so many physical health benefits to touch, and the chemical that gets released with it, oxytocin. Some of the different things they found: it decreases inflammation, it boosts your immune system, it protects your heart from the effects of cortisol, it lowers your blood pressure, it helps with wound healing, it helps muscle regeneration. They've found in some studies done with men that it decreases appetite, it counteracts the effects of alcohol, it makes um, painkillers, like you don't build up as much of a tolerance to painkillers, and all of those things. It also it helps to reset to get you into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is where you have a really deep experience of relaxation. And I mean, all of those things are things that, that contribute to good health, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not even taking into account, the mental benefits. Like I have a friend in her 70s who she's an old hippie who lives off the grid in Northern California, my dear friend Barbara. And I'll go and I'll like hug her and cuddle her, and months later she'll tell me she never sees anybody. She lives like very alone.
Oh,
And
wow.
like months later she'll be like, those hugs just stay with me, that time that you spent holding me." She's like, "I can call it up in my memory, and it helps to sustain me until I have human contact again." I mean, it's so powerful. It makes people feel like they belong. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this is how we started out as a species. It's like if when we were cave people, we would all be sleeping in a giant pile for warmth and safety. So it's
Good
like
point.
human beings, or even just 100 years ago. I mean, if you live in Chicago, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you and your partner and your dogs and your kids, if you had any, you would all be sleeping in the same bed to keep from freezing to death, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we've gotten so far away from that. And, it's like our bodies remember. I mean, this is how we start our lives as children. It's like when,
Swaddled up to mom.
yeah, or dad, it's like you feel safe, you feel loved, you feel cared for, you feel protected. And our bodies remember that. Our
Yeah.
bodies remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Before we start wrapping things up, Epiphany, can you
Yeah.
drop all your links where people can find you, where your book is, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So I have a website which is www.nurturinghumantouch.com. There's links to get the book there, but all of the major e-retailers on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Waterstone, all the different ones. It's on all those platforms, and you can get it as an ebook or as a printed book, or as an audiobook as well. And the audiobook comes with downloads of the exercises that
Awesome.
we were talking about so that you can do it. And I think there's tons of great resources in there for people coming out of COVID, because I mean, like I'm like you, I'm a hugger. So I'm just like, actually today is like my 2 weeks past my second shot. So I'm like, yeah, come bring me all my friends to hug now. I miss them so much. But a lot of people are very reticent about it. And I think the book has a ton of great information for people about how to navigate the world of touch. It doesn't specifically deal with COVID. I'm still I'm not sure. I may do a revised edition for it, but I
Beautiful.
think, yeah, I think that there's tons of, all of the stuff that's in there is, I think, going to be super helpful and relevant for people as they start navigating this world of physical connection again as we start to come out of the pandemic. So grab it, check it out.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Any last words of wisdom or advice for the audience before we wrap things up?
Yeah, just I would say right now everybody like has very different boundaries and different levels of anxiety and different comfort levels with touch. Don't apologize to anybody. If you're like, I never want to touch another person again, then hang on to that boundary and don't let anybody shame you into doing it. And you'll make your way back to the world of humans eventually, or not. But
Well, hopefully, because that would be a very
yeah,
sad way to live. I'm sorry,
it,
but
it, it, it
you can
is. It
touch
is.
me all you want.
It is, but it's like I think we have to let people really, take their time, because we're coming out of a time of a lot of trauma, and
I have
just
family. I have family members that are traumatized from this. So yeah, I
yeah,
hear what you're
yeah,
saying.
it's been really rough for sure. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, Deanna, so much for having me on your podcast. It was a fun conversation. I loved meeting you.
Thank you, Epiphany. It was great. It was very open and honest, and I love the topic. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, follow, share, all that good stuff. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.